It was a damp, cold evening on the 18th of January, 1993, when Michael Godfrey and his colleague Ron were driving down London Road in Greenhithe, Kent. As they cruised along the darkened street, Michael caught a glimpse of something at the side of the road, a figure hunched over, barely moving. Instinctively, he pulled over and ran toward the person, finding a teenage girl collapsed on her knees, struggling to breathe. Thinking she had been hit by a car, Michael quickly knelt beside her and checked for spinal injuries, careful not to move her unnecessarily. As he gently laid her down, a horrifying sight met his eyes. Blood soaked the front of her body, pouring from her mouth. His heart pounded as he immediately started CPR, desperate to keep her alive. Within minutes, paramedics arrived and took over, cutting open her vest to assess her injuries. What they uncovered was devastating. This was no car accident. The girl, just 15 years old, had been brutally stabbed multiple times. Some of the wounds were so deep they reached her organs. Despite frantic efforts to save her, Clare Tiltman was pronounced dead shortly after 7 p.m., just 4 days after celebrating her 16th birthday. News of Clare's death shattered the quiet town. Clare was known to her friends as Tilt, lively, funny, and full of dreams. A hard-working student at Dartford Grammar School for Girls, she had ambitions of becoming a firefighter and was actively volunteering with the fire service for her Duke of Edinburgh Award. Clare loved music, particularly INXS and Queen, and enjoyed spending weekends shopping in Bluewater with her friends. That evening, Clare had left her home on Woodward Terrace, intending to walk the short distance to her friend Victoria's house. She had stopped at an off-license on London Road to buy cigarettes, a small act of teenage rebellion, and was seen laughing and chatting with the shopkeeper. Moments later, she set off along the road, cutting through a small alleyway. She never made it to Victoria's door. The murder investigation, codenamed Operation Artist, mobilized quickly. Forensic teams scoured the alleyway where Clare had been attacked, but the scene yielded little in the way of evidence. No weapon was found. No clear witnesses had seen the attack. Investigators struggled to find a motive. There was no sign of sexual assault or robbery. Clare had not been involved in drugs or crime. She had no enemies. Police theorized that her attacker may have been a stranger, a random, motiveless predator. A witness came forward saying they had seen a man wearing a light-colored jacket near the scene around the time Clare would have been attacked. Another man called the police to say he had seen someone with dark, curly hair loitering by the zebra crossing near the alleyway. But when detectives interviewed him formally, his account changed. He now said he had seen a man between 5:45 and 5:55 p.m., but no longer mentioned the crossing. These conflicting accounts muddied the investigation rather than clarifying it. The murder bore chilling similarities to another brutal attack just a few miles away. In December 1988, a 27-year-old woman had been abducted, stabbed, and left for dead in a disused chalk quarry. She survived against all odds, but her attacker was never caught. Police couldn't ignore the parallels. Was the same man responsible? Back at Clare's school, her classmates learned of her death when the head teacher burst into their classroom, shutting off the radio mid-broadcast. Moments later, police officers and the yearhead entered, breaking the news to the stunned and devastated students. Joanne, one of Clare's closest friends, remembered the suffocating grief that gripped the school. Clare's funeral was held at Eltham Crematorium. Over 200 mourners attended: family, friends, teachers, classmates, police officers, and members of the Royal British Legion who had sung Happy Birthday to Clare just days earlier. Her mother, Linda Tiltman, and father, Cliff, were broken with grief. In the months that followed, they struggled to return to any sense of normality, haunted by the knowledge that Clare's killer was still out there. Among the early suspects police interviewed was a local man named Colin Ash Smith, a familiar face around Greenhithe. Ash Smith delivered milk for his family's business and was the son of 2 respected local councillors. Outwardly, he appeared unremarkable, but beneath the surface, Ash Smith harbored sinister tendencies. In 1996, Ash Smith was jailed for life after being convicted of 2 brutal knife attacks on women, crimes eerily similar in nature to Clare's murder. In one case, he had waited for a woman outside her home before stabbing her repeatedly in the chest and stomach. The randomness and savagery of the attacks shocked even hardened detectives. Still, back in 1993, police had found no concrete evidence to link Ash Smith to Clare's death. Without forensic proof or a confession, their hands were tied. The case grew cold. Inside prison, Ash Smith revealed more of his dark mind. He kept meticulous diaries filled with disturbing fantasies about abducting and controlling women. In one entry, he detailed how he planned to break into a woman's home, wield a knife, and force her into submission. These weren't idle fantasies. They closely mirrored real crimes he had committed. One of his fixations was a woman named Debbie Jarvis, the wife of a former coworker. After Debbie rejected his advances, Ash Smith's obsession turned violent. In one chilling incident, Debbie and her husband Richard returned home to find her nightdress sliced to ribbons and draped over the bathroom door, a silent threat. But police didn't stop there. Other suspects were considered. Peter Rivers, who murdered his mother in 1994, left behind a suicide note mentioning Clare's case. Robert Napper, a serial rapist and murderer who killed Rachel Nichols and later Samantha Bissett and her daughter, was also investigated. Yet nothing ever stuck. Clare's killer remained officially unidentified. Years passed, but Clare's parents never gave up hope. They fought tirelessly, holding vigils, speaking to the media, and pleading with the public for information. "You look around at people and you wonder," Linda said once. "Could it be someone you know? Could it be someone you trust?" Tragically, Linda died in 2008 without ever seeing justice for her daughter. Cliff passed away in 2012, heartbroken and still searching for answers. "I miss her to bits," he said shortly before his death. "I'll keep fighting till my last breath." Even without Clare's parents to lead the charge, her friends and the broader community kept pushing. In 2013, on the 20th anniversary of Clare's death, the police launched a full cold case review. New laws allowing evidence of bad character gave investigators a crucial tool. They could now present Ash Smith's previous violent crimes and disturbing fantasies at trial. Detectives decided to take another look at Ash Smith. They searched his parents' former home and uncovered a chilling piece of evidence: a carefully preserved newspaper clipping marking the one-year anniversary of Clare's murder. It was clear Ash Smith had kept a personal, morbid connection to her case. The breakthrough came when police interviewed a former cellmate of Ash Smith's, a man named Stefan. He recalled Ash Smith casually mentioning the zebra crossing near the murder scene. This was critical. There was only one crime linked to a zebra crossing: Clare's. It was a detail only the killer would know. Armed with the new evidence, police rearrested Ash Smith. After a painstaking investigation and months of building the case, prosecutors felt they finally had enough. In 2014, over 2 decades after Clare's murder, Colin Ash Smith was charged with her killing. His trial began later that year at Inner London Crown Court. The courtroom heard harrowing details of how Ash Smith would sneak out at night with knives hidden on him, seeking opportunities. He admitted he carried weapons during these nighttime prowls, claiming bizarrely that he wanted someone to attack him first. Prosecutors dismissed this as fantasy. His diaries, his previous attacks, his knowledge of specific crime scene details, and the psychological profile built around him painted a damning portrait. The jury deliberated for just 3.5 hours. On the 11th of December, 2014, Colin Ash Smith was found guilty of Clare Tiltman's murder. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, with a minimum term of 21 years. He refused to attend his sentencing, a final act of cowardice. Mr. Justice Sweeney, passing sentence, told Ash Smith, "You ended Clare's young life, so full of promise, and caused unbearable grief to her family and friends. The pain you inflicted can never be undone." Although Clare's parents didn't live to see it, justice was finally served. Clare Tiltman, the vibrant young girl with dreams bigger than the small town she grew up in, was not forgotten.
The tragic death of Anthony Litler, a 25-year-old man from East Finchley, London, shocked the community in 1984. What was initially believed to be a random act of violence soon turned into one of London's most enduring cold cases, with the victim's family left searching for justice over the next 4 decades. However, thanks to recent breakthroughs in forensic technology and a relentless pursuit of the truth, the case has been reopened, resulting in the arrest of 2 suspects in 2024. Anthony Litler was a man full of potential and warmth. Born in East Finchley, London, on the 15th of August, 1958, he was the eldest son of Margaret and Thomas Litler. From a young age, Anthony exhibited a deep sense of kindness and responsibility. He was raised in a loving, middle-class family that placed great emphasis on education and personal integrity. As a child, Anthony was known for his inquisitive nature. His parents often recounted how he would spend hours reading books or building intricate models. He was particularly fascinated by electronics, a passion that eventually led him to pursue a career in the field. His parents, both educators, encouraged his intellectual curiosity, providing him with the tools and support to explore his interests. Anthony was an average student in school, dedicated, though not necessarily a standout academically. However, his peers often spoke of his amiable nature. He was a friend everyone could rely on, the type of person who always made an effort to include others, ensuring that no one felt left out. He had a close-knit group of friends who cherished him not just for his kindness, but also for his ability to make people laugh in even the most challenging of times. After completing his secondary education, Anthony attended North London College, where he studied electronic engineering. He showed a natural aptitude for the subject, often excelling in his practical assignments. His professors and classmates alike admired his dedication to learning and his ability to grasp complex concepts quickly. Upon completing his studies, Anthony secured a job at a local electronics store in East Finchley. He became well known among the shop's clientele, praised for his expert knowledge and helpful demeanor. Whether it was assisting customers with fixing their broken gadgets or advising them on the best electronic products, Anthony was always willing to go above and beyond. His job at the store was more than just a paycheck for him. It was a stepping stone toward his larger ambitions. Anthony dreamt of one day starting his own electronics business. He had begun saving money, planning to eventually open a small store of his own where he could share his love for technology with a wider audience. Those who knew him well could see his entrepreneurial spirit, his determination to carve out a future for himself beyond the constraints of his current job. Despite his career ambitions, Anthony also had a vibrant social life. He spent weekends with friends, often enjoying pub outings or attending local events. Music was another major part of his life. He loved going to concerts, especially rock gigs, where he could unwind and enjoy the moment. His friends remember him as someone who was always the life of the party, but he was also deeply thoughtful and introspective at times, always taking a moment to appreciate the small pleasures in life. At home, Anthony was a dedicated son and brother. He was especially close to his younger sister, Emma Litler, who adored him. They had a typical sibling relationship filled with teasing, jokes, and shared moments of affection. Anthony was always there for Emma, guiding her through difficult times, offering advice, and being a source of strength. He often took her on outings, making sure that she had a fun and fulfilling childhood. In addition to his strong relationship with his sister, Anthony was also deeply attached to his parents, Margaret and Thomas Litler. His mother, a former primary school teacher, always encouraged him to pursue his passions and was proud of his ambitions. His father, a retired school teacher, admired his son's work ethic and his desire to better himself. Their bond was rooted in love and mutual respect, with Anthony often finding solace in their presence. Though Anthony did not have a significant other at the time of his death, he had been in a few serious relationships over the years. He was known for being romantic, enjoying simple dates like long walks or picnics in the park. His friends often teased him for his genuine nature when it came to relationships, always putting his partner's needs first. In the early evening of the 2nd of February, 1984, Anthony Litler was brutally murdered in East Finchley, a quiet suburb of North London. Anthony had always been described as a kind-hearted and hard-working individual, known for his engaging personality and the respect he earned from those around him. He was beloved by his parents and siblings, and his tragic and untimely death sent shockwaves through the community. That fateful evening, Anthony was found in an alley near the East Finchley Underground Station after suffering multiple stab wounds. He was left to die in the dark, his body found by a passerby who immediately called the authorities. Despite efforts to revive him, Anthony succumbed to his injuries at the scene. The initial investigation suggested that the crime could have been a botched robbery. However, the absence of any personal items being taken from Anthony's body left detectives perplexed. This created suspicion that the murder might have been targeted, but without clear evidence of a motive, the investigation hit a dead end. His family, heartbroken and confused, faced an agonizing wait for answers, unsure of why their loved one had been taken from them. In the wake of Anthony's death, the police immediately launched an extensive investigation, with detectives canvassing the local area and following leads. Despite a series of interviews with potential witnesses and people who might have known Anthony, the case quickly ran cold. Many of the initial theories, ranging from gang activity to personal vendettas, were explored but did not lead to any breakthrough. During the investigation, the Litler family was left to cope with the emotional weight of Anthony's loss. His parents, Margaret and Thomas Litler, were particularly devastated. Margaret had always been a protective mother, and her son's untimely murder was a blow from which she could hardly recover. Thomas, a retired schoolteacher, tried to stay strong for his wife and their 2 children, but the strain of the unresolved case weighed heavily on him. The trauma of losing their son and the unanswered questions left the family in turmoil. Anthony's younger sister, Emma Litler, who was still in school at the time, found it difficult to cope with the grief. In an interview years later, she recalled how her family had been haunted by the lack of closure. "We couldn't understand why it happened. He was just a young man with his whole life ahead of him," she shared. As the years passed, the Litler family kept pushing for answers. But with each passing year, their hope of justice seemed to fade. The lack of developments in the case felt like an endless cycle of pain, with no relief in sight. In 2023, the case was reopened by the Metropolitan Police's Specialist Crime Unit after significant advancements in forensic technology. Detectives were optimistic that new tools, especially in the field of DNA analysis, could offer a fresh perspective on the case. The police appealed to the public for new information, and this renewed focus on the case led to the discovery of key evidence that had been previously overlooked. This was a turning point for the Litler family. For the first time in decades, they were able to see a glimmer of hope. The family, especially Anthony's parents, were cautiously optimistic as they witnessed the progress in the investigation. "It's been so long, but we've never stopped believing in the possibility of justice," Margaret Litler said in an interview after hearing the news that the case had been reopened. The renewed investigation unearthed fresh evidence from the crime scene that had previously gone unnoticed. In particular, DNA samples that had been collected years earlier were reanalyzed using modern forensic technology. This technology revealed new leads that were previously impossible to detect, marking a significant breakthrough in the case. A significant breakthrough in the investigation came in March 2024, when DNA evidence was used to link 2 men, Michael Stewart and Anthony Stewart, to the crime. Using state-of-the-art forensic techniques, police were able to extract new genetic material from the crime scene that had previously gone undetected. This evidence placed both men in the vicinity of the crime during the time of the murder. For the Litler family, this moment marked the end of over 4 decades of uncertainty. Finally, the names of the suspects were revealed to the public, and the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. It's overwhelming. To finally know who did this after all these years is a bittersweet moment for us. Anthony's father, Thomas Litler, said in an emotional statement after the arrest. The breakthrough not only confirmed that the murder was not a random act of violence, but also suggested that the suspects had a deeper connection to Anthony's life than anyone had previously known. The involvement of Michael Stewart and Anthony Stewart, 2 men whose identities were not known to the Litler family, raised further questions about the nature of the crime. After the forensic breakthrough, Michael Stewart, aged 61, and Anthony Stewart, aged 59, were arrested in March 2024. Both men were taken into custody at separate locations in East Finchley. The police immediately charged them both with the murder of Anthony Litler, and both men were remanded into custody pending further legal proceedings. The arrests brought a sense of justice to the Litler family, though the emotional toll of decades of waiting still lingered. The pain of Anthony's absence had never truly gone away for Margaret and Thomas. "We still miss him every single day. But knowing that someone will finally be held accountable brings some sense of peace, Margaret shared, her voice thick with emotion. At the time of their arrest, the police remained tight-lipped about the specifics of the crime. They did not disclose the motive behind the murder or the exact role each man played, but the arrests were widely regarded as a major step toward finally solving the case. Detectives expressed their satisfaction with the progress made and reiterated their commitment to ensuring that justice was served. While Michael Stewart and Anthony Stewart were charged with murder, a third individual was also arrested in connection with the crime. However, the police have not named this person, and no charges have been filed against them at the time of writing. The investigation remains open, with detectives continuing to examine all aspects of the case. The police have made it clear that they are leaving no stone unturned. They are continuing to work with forensic experts to ensure that all leads are fully explored. Detective Corporal Wade Zufall, who has been involved in several cold case investigations, has publicly acknowledged the emotional weight of the case. He emphasized the importance of persistence in the pursuit of justice and the satisfaction of seeing a decades-old case brought to trial. For the Litler family, the reopening of the case brought both relief and heartache. Anthony's parents, who had lived through the anguish of losing their son and the uncertainty of not knowing who was responsible, spoke out after the arrests. Their words were filled with both sadness and gratitude, as they reflected on the long years spent hoping for justice. While we are relieved that the case has finally been solved, it doesn't bring our son back. We've had to live with this pain for 40 years, and though the arrests are a step forward, it can never undo what's been done, Anthony's mother said in a public statement. The Littler family has been vocal in their support for the ongoing investigation, expressing their trust in the police and their belief that the suspects will be held accountable for their actions. As of March 2025, Michael Stewart and Anthony Stewart are expected to stand trial for the murder of Anthony Litler. Both men will face charges in connection with the 1984 crime, and the legal proceedings will likely draw significant attention from both the public and the media. The trial is expected to bring further details to light about the circumstances surrounding Anthony's death, the suspect's motives, and the role of forensic evidence in modern investigations. The case has already highlighted the importance of forensic science and the role it plays in bringing long unsolved crimes to justice. It also serves as a reminder that justice, no matter how long it takes, can be achieved, even in the most challenging of circumstances. The reopening of the Anthony Litler cold case and the eventual arrest of the suspects highlights the crucial role that new technologies and modern investigative techniques play in solving crimes that once seemed unsolvable. This case demonstrates the dedication of law enforcement and the importance of never giving up on the pursuit of justice. For the Littler family, the coming trial represents both an end to a painful chapter and a step toward healing. Although the scars of their loss will never fully fade, they can take solace in knowing that the fight for justice has finally reached its conclusion.